Today we're going to work on the installation of the vacuum lines to the underside of the duplex manifold, which we obviously disconnected when we pulled the head out. I'm going to start out with this diagram, which hopefully you can read well. And this diagram is on the XJ list in the photo section under the XJ Series 1, 2, and 3. And basically it's a diagram of the underside of the manifold, although looking from the top, and you'll pardon the complication, but as though you could see through the duplex manifold and see the connections that are underneath. And working from the back forward, if you could read this, it would show you that that first connection in the back of the manifold is the automatic transmission. The second one goes through the air filter housing, and then there's a smaller diagram beneath that gives the detail on that because there's multiple connections coming off of that one. Third one is the vacuum booster tank or reserve tank that's located behind the brake booster. And the fourth one is the distributor and carburetors. And the last one, which is up in the front of the manifold, is the brake servo. So those are the 5 connections that are under there. As you can see, the hose running to the brake booster is a rubber hose coming from the front of the car, and it comes out of a metal tube which is laying on the fender well and is turning right towards the engine at the location, as you can see, where it becomes a hose. Reserve tank is coming from this connection right here, and then running behind the engine and around and under the duplex manifold. So you can follow that one very easily. And if you, when you go to the other side of that device, it'll go directly to the storage tank behind the brake booster. So that one's easy to identify. The transmission one gave me a little bit of trouble, simply because it's been so long ago that I disconnected it that I couldn't recall what kind of a connector it was. And it turns out that it is this right behind the throttle, what's called the throttle control, and behind the valve or the cam cover over here. There is a U-shaped piece of tubing that comes up, turns and goes back down again, and then turns and goes towards the brake booster. And then there's a very short piece of rubber hose, because the 2 pieces of tubing almost meet underneath the duplex manifold. And by the way, the rear connection that goes to the transmission, unlike the other 2, is a angle connector. It's not a, the others are all pointing straight down towards the ground. This one comes out of the duplex manifold and turns towards the back of the car to meet that metal tube coming up from the back of the car. And then there's just a very short 2-inch or 2.5-inch piece of hose that's connected between them to make the connection. And by the way, all of these, at least for my purposes, all of these are made with hose clamps. I'm not depending on friction because vacuum is such a tricky issue in these engines, as you probably know, that I don't want to go searching for a vacuum leak. So those are the vacuum connections on the duplex manifold. Then we're going to go on to the next section of the installation here. Well, good morning. We're back in the garage again on what is forecast to be warm July Saturday morning. And we're here to hopefully get down to the end of the installation of the Jaguar XJ6 head on this 71 XJ6. At this point, as you can see, the head is obviously back on, and it's all connected again. The spark plugs, carburetors, etc. We don't have the air cleaner on, of course, because there's obviously going to be some adjustments to the carburetor. Other than that, antifreeze fluid's back in place, oil's been changed, all the connections made that we can make, and hopefully when we turn that key, we'll hear some life in this engine for the first time in several years. I did put some oil in the cylinder heads or in the the spark plug openings. Put some oil in the opening on the one side of the engine where we will put oil in. But other than that, unfortunately, we can't get any lubricant onto the valves at this point, although when the head was rebuilt, they were, I think it's called assembly grease or something of that nature. It's used to coat parts that have been disassembled. So we're ready to turn that key, and I have to say that it's interesting, my feelings at this point. As you know, process has been going on for at least a year in the actual rebuild, and a year or two before that in the disassembly and so on. So it's with some trepidation that I face the prospect of turning that key this morning. And two thoughts run through my mind. One is that I turn the key and the engine doesn't start, which means that obviously we've done something wrong, which might be major, might be minor, but obviously there'll be a troubleshooting phase after that. Or that I've done something seriously wrong, particularly with the valve timing, because that's how this whole process began, was the alignment of the cams, or turning the two cam shafts independently of one another, which caused the valves to get bent. And I'd feel terrible if that were to happen again as a result of some mistake I made. So those are my thoughts at this point about to turn the key. So I guess we really have no choice but to turn that key and see what happens. So let's get to it.